Hey guys, tonight we are going to immerse ourselves in the quiet, rhythmic world of Maori cloak weaving, an art known as watu that transforms humble garden plants into garments of immense power and beauty. Imagine standing at the very edge of a vast, emerald wetland just as the sun begins to peek over the horizon, casting a long, golden glow across a landscape that feels as though it hasn't changed in 1,000 years. The air is thick and cool, carrying the heavy scent of damp earth, crushed moss, and the salty tang of the distant Pacific Ocean. You are surrounded by the Harakeke, the New Zealand flax, its tall, sword-like leaves standing like silent guardians in the morning mist. These leaves are not just plants. They are the backbone of a culture, the raw material for everything from fishing nets to the sacred cloaks worn by chiefs. You probably believe this was just a simple survival craft, a way to stay warm in a land that was much colder than the tropical islands your ancestors left behind. But that is a bit like saying a tuxedo is just a way to cover your skin. These cloaks, or Kakahu, were masterpieces of structural engineering and spiritual significance, woven with a level of detail that would make a modern textile mill sweat. Before you get too comfortable and possibly fall asleep halfway through, tap like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this odd mix of boredom and history. It keeps the channel alive and the stories just sleepy enough to help you drift off again next time. I always find it fascinating to see how far these stories travel, so please take a second to post your location and your local time in the comments. Whether it is a rainy afternoon in Seattle or a humid midnight in Singapore, I hope this serves as a little pocket of peace for you. Now, dim the lights, let the world outside grow quiet, and turn on a fan if you like that soft, steady hum in the background. Let your shoulders loosen and your breathing slow. This is your time to drift. No rush, no deadlines, no noise. Just you, a little warmth in the air, and the faint whisper of history waiting to unfold. So, settle in, and let's ease gently into tonight's journey together. The ground beneath your feet is soft and yielding, a carpet of decaying leaves and rich, black mud that makes a gentle, squelching sound as you move deeper into the grove. You are carrying nothing but a sharp mussel shell and a sense of quiet purpose. The Harakeke plants rise up around you, some of them twice your height, their long leaves arching gracefully toward the ground. You stop before a particularly healthy cluster, a fan of leaves that looks vibrant and strong. You don't just reach in and start hacking away like an overeager gardener on a Sunday afternoon. There is a specific order to this, a logic that mimics the structure of a family. In the center of the plant stands the rito, the baby leaf, pointing straight up toward the sky. On either side of it are the awi rito, the parents, who protect the young one from the wind and the sun. You only take the outer leaves, the grandparents, who have done their work and are ready to be transformed into something new. It is a sustainable harvesting method that ensures the plant will continue to thrive long after you have finished your cloak, which is a level of forward thinking that we modern humans, with our disposable fast fashion habits, could probably learn a thing or two from. You reach out and touch the surface of a leaf. It feels cool and waxy, surprisingly sturdy, and ribbed with long, vertical veins. This is Phormium tenax, a member of the daylily family, though it has very little in common with the delicate flowers in a suburban flower bed. When the first Polynesians arrived in Aotearoa, they were met with a climate that was far harsher than the warm, volcanic islands of their origin. Their traditional cloth, made from the bark of the paper mulberry tree, simply couldn't survive the damp, freezing winters of the south. Historians still argue whether the early settlers spent decades experimenting with different fibers, or if they hit upon the potential of Harakeke almost immediately out of sheer, shivering necessity. Regardless, they discovered that hidden inside these tough, green blades were silky, incredibly strong fibers called muka. As you prepare to make your first cut, you feel the weight of the task ahead. You aren't just making a jacket, you are beginning a process that might take a year or more to complete. You press the edge of your shell against the base of an outer leaf. The shell is surprisingly sharp, having been ground down against a stone, until it can slice through the tough exterior of the plant with a single, smooth motion. You feel the resistance of the plant give way, a clean break that releases the faint, grassy aroma of fresh sap. It is a satisfying feeling, a physical connection to the earth that provides exactly what you need, provided you treat it with respect. You move with a slow, deliberate rhythm, selecting only the best leaves, those that are long, straight, and free from the nibbles of hungry insects. You might find yourself thinking that this is a bit like grocery shopping in the 14th century, except there are no carts with squeaky wheels and the checkout line involves a lot more physical labor. The sun is higher now, burning off the last of the mist, and the wetlands are coming alive with the sounds of the morning. You hear the distant, melodic chime of a two-way bird, its song echoing through the trees like a series of crystal bells. Your pile of harvested leaves grows steadily at your side. You arrange them neatly, keeping the bases together. These leaves are heavy, full of water and life, and you can feel the strain in your lower back as you bend and reach. If you think your office chair gives you back pain, imagine spending 6 hours hunched over a flax bush in a swamp. There were no ergonomic adjustments in the pre-colonial era, just the steady endurance of a body used to the demands of the natural world. You take a moment to rest, sitting on a fallen log that is covered in soft, silver-green lichen. You look at your hands, already stained slightly green from the sap. There is a quirky tidbit of history that suggests some ancient weavers could identify the specific variety of Harakeke just by the taste of the sap or the way the fiber snapped between their fingers. There are hundreds of varieties of this plant, each with its own personality. Some are better for strong, coarse ropes, while others produce the fine, shimmering muka required for a prestigious cloak. It is a level of botanical knowledge that makes modern plant apps look like child's play. You are looking for the elite flax, the kind that will yield fibers as soft as silk, but as strong as nylon. The process of gathering is a meditation in itself. You aren't rushing to meet a deadline or checking a watch. You are simply moving in time with the needs of the plant and the requirements of the craft. You begin to bundle the leaves, tying them together with a strip of the very flax you have just harvested. The bundles are hefty, and as you hoist one onto your shoulder, the cool moisture of the leaves soaks into your clothing. It is a refreshing sensation, a reminder of the life-giving water that flows through this valley. You begin the walk back toward your village, your footsteps light on the forest floor. The path is familiar, winding through ancient ferns that reach out to brush against your arms like soft, green fingers. As you walk, you think about the sheer amount of material required for a single cloak. For a large, feathered garment, you might need hundreds of leaves, each one meticulously processed by hand. It is a daunting thought, but you don't feel overwhelmed. In this world, time moves differently. The seasons dictate the pace of work, and there is a deep, quiet satisfaction in knowing that you are part of a cycle that has existed for generations. You pass a small stream, its water clear and cold, bubbling over smooth gray stones. You stop to wash your face, the water shocking your skin into a state of calm alertness. You can see your reflection in a still pool. A person standing between the wild world of the bush and the structured world of the loom. When you finally reach the clearing where your home sits, the air is warmer and the smell of wood smoke drifts toward you from a nearby hearth. You lay your bundles of flax in the shade of a large tree, careful to keep them away from the direct heat of the sun, which could make the leaves brittle and difficult to work with. You look at the pile and realize that this is only the very beginning. The leaves are just the shell. The real treasure is hidden deep inside, waiting to be extracted. You feel a sense of anticipation, a quiet hum of energy in your chest. You are about to turn these green, garden, variety leaves into something that will carry the mana, the prestige and spirit of your family. You take a seat on a woven mat, the texture of the dried grass familiar and comforting against your legs. You pick up a single leaf from the bundle and run your thumb along its edge. It is sharp, capable of delivering a nasty paper cut if you aren't careful. You find yourself wondering if the first weavers ever got annoyed by the repetitive nature of the work, or if they found the same peace in it that you are starting to feel. There is a certain irony in the fact that we today use apps to find mindfulness, when people in the past were essentially forced into it by the sheer labor of making their own clothes. No one was multitasking while they were scraping flax. If you didn't focus, you'd end up with a ruined fiber or a sliced finger. The light in the clearing is dappled, shifting as the breeze moves the canopy of the trees above. You begin to sort the leaves by length and quality, a task that requires a keen eye and a patient hand. You are looking for consistency. A good cloak needs fibers of equal strength and color. You notice the subtle variations in the green. Some leaves have a reddish tint at the edges, while others are a deep, bruised emerald. These colors are a map of the plant's life, showing the quality of the soil it grew in and the amount of sun it received. You treat each leaf as an individual, acknowledging its contribution to the whole. As you work, you think about the mainstream historical fact that Harakeke was once the primary export of New Zealand, long before wool or dairy took over. In the early 19th century, European ships would arrive specifically to trade for processed flax, which was used for the rigging of the great sailing vessels of the British Navy. They valued it for its strength and its resistance to rot in the salty sea air. But the traders never quite mastered the art of extracting the fiber with the same delicacy as the Maori weavers. They tried to build machines to do the work, but the machines often tore the delicate fibers, proving that some things simply require the touch of a human hand. You feel a small spark of pride in that. The idea that even the most advanced technology of the time couldn't replicate the skill you are about to employ. The day is moving into the quiet lull of the afternoon. The birds have settled into a soft chatter, and the heat of the sun is mellow and kind. You feel a pleasant heaviness in your limbs, the result of a morning spent in the fresh air and the physical labor of the harvest. You realize that you are ready to move on to the next stage, but for now, you just want to sit here in the shade, surrounded by the scent of the flax and the gentle sounds of the forest. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the rhythmic rustle of the leaves in the breeze lull you into a state of deep relaxation. You are exactly where you need to be, connected to the earth and the ancient traditions of those who came before you. The journey of the cloak has begun, and there is no need to rush. The fibers will wait, the patterns will emerge in their own time, and the story of the weave will unfold one quiet step at a time. You breathe in deeply, the cool air filling your lungs, and feel a profound sense of peace. The harvest is complete, and the transition from plant to thread is about to begin. But that is a task for the next hour, or perhaps the next day. For now, there is only the quiet, the warmth, and the soft, green promise of the harakeke lying at your feet. As you sit there, you might think about how different this is from buying a sweater at a mall. There, everything is immediate, anonymous, and disconnected from the source. Here, you know the very ground where your clothing began. You know the wind that shaped the leaves and the rain that fed the roots. There is a weight to this knowledge, a sense of responsibility to the environment that provides for you. It makes the garment feel more like a living thing than a piece of fabric. You imagine the finished cloak, heavy with feathers and intricate patterns, and you realize that every single thread will have passed through your fingers, starting right here with these damp, green bundles. It is a slow, beautiful realization that brings a smile to your face as you drift deeper into the calm of the afternoon. The world feels smaller here, focused on the immediate textures and smells of your work. The distractions of the wider world don't exist in the flax grove. There are no notifications, no interruptions, only the steady pulse of nature. You think about the fringe theory that some early Pacific navigators used the arrangement of flax leaves to teach children about the patterns of the stars and the currents of the sea. Whether true or not, it speaks to the central role this plant played in every aspect of life. It was a teacher, a provider, and a protector. You feel a deep gratitude for the harakeke, for its resilience and its hidden gifts. You run your hand over the bundles one last time, feeling the coolness of the leaves, before you finally let your eyes drift shut, fully embracing the stillness of the moment. The rhythm of the wetlands has become your own rhythm, a slow, steady heartbeat that carries you forward into the next phase of the craft. You are a weaver in the making, and the earth has given you everything you need to begin. The morning mist has long since evaporated, leaving the air warm and heavy with the scent of sun, baked earth, and the sharp, green aroma of the flax you gathered earlier. You find yourself sitting on a low wooden bench, the surface smoothed by years of use, located just outside the main gathering area of your village. Beside you, the large bundles of harakeke leaves lean against the wall, their deep emerald surfaces shimmering occasionally as a stray beam of sunlight filters through the thatched roof of the overhang. This is where the real work begins. The transition from raw plant to the ethereal, silky fiber that will eventually become a garment of high status. You pick up a single leaf, feeling its surprising weight and the stiffness of its spine. It is a formidable piece of nature, tough enough to survive the battering winds of the coast. Yet you know that within this rigid exterior lies a secret softness. Your primary tool for this stage is deceptively simple: a large, sturdy mussel shell, specifically the cuckoo or pepain. You hold it in your palm, feeling the cool, pearly interior against your skin and the sharp, slightly serrated edge that you have spent the last hour perfecting against a whetstone. It fits perfectly in the curve of your hand, a natural instrument that no factory-made blade could ever truly replace. You could call it the original multi-tool, though it probably won't help you open a bottle of soda or tighten a screw on a pair of sunglasses. It is a tool born of the sea, used to unlock the treasures of the land. You take the flax leaf and lay it flat across a smooth, rounded stripping board. You make a small, precise nick across the back of the leaf with the edge of the shell, being careful not to cut all the way through. This is the moment of truth, the point where the green skin of the plant is separated from its inner soul. As you begin to scrape, you feel a steady resistance. The green epidermis of the leaf is stubborn, clinging to the fibers with a natural glue that has protected the plant its entire life. You apply a firm, even pressure, drawing the shell down the length of the leaf in one long, continuous motion. You hear the soft, rasping sound of the shell against the plant, a noise that is both rhythmic and deeply satisfying. It is the sound of progress, the sound of layers being stripped away to reveal something hidden. With each pass of the shell, a thick, translucent sap begins to ooze out, coating the board and your hands in a sticky, herbal liquid. If you think your kitchen floor gets messy after a particularly ambitious Sunday brunch, you haven't seen the aftermath of a morning spent stripping muka. The sap is everywhere, a testament to the life force of the Harakeke. Slowly, almost magically, the green skin begins to peel away in long, curly ribbons, falling to the ground like shavings of emerald wood. Beneath it, the first glimpses of the muka appear. It is startlingly white, a pale, shimmering contrast to the dark green of the outer leaf. You continue the scraping process, your movements becoming more fluid as you find the rhythm. This is the karo, the act of stripping, and it is perhaps the most physically demanding part of the entire process. Your shoulders begin to ache with a dull, familiar heat, and the muscles in your forearm tingle from the repetitive motion. You might find yourself thinking that this is a much more effective workout than any expensive gym membership, though the view of the forest is infinitely better than a wall of mirrors and a television playing the morning news. Historians still argue whether the specific technique of using a shell to strip flax was a local innovation born shortly after the first arrivals landed in Aotearoa, or if it was an adaptation of much older techniques used for processing the bark of trees in the tropical islands of the north. Some believe that the sheer abundance of high-quality shellfish on the New Zealand coastline naturally led the early weavers to experiment with different edges until they found the perfect match for the tough harakeke. Regardless of its origin, the efficiency of the shell is undeniable, a mainstream historical fact that often surprises people is that the muka fiber is technically one of the strongest natural materials on the planet, possessing a tensile strength that rivals many modern synthetic blends. It was so highly valued that early European explorers were desperate to secure large quantities of it for the rigging of their ships, finding it far superior to the hemp they had been using for centuries. You stop for a moment to wipe the sweat from your brow with the back of your hand, careful not to get the sticky sap in your eyes. The sun is now directly overhead, and the village has grown quiet as people seek the shade. You look down at the fiber you have already extracted. It looks like a bundle of fine, silver hair, glowing in the dappled light. You run your fingers through it, and the texture is a revelation. It is no longer a plant. It has become something closer to silk or high-quality linen. There is a quirky, fringed tidbit that suggests the vibrations caused by the scraping shell actually help to align the microscopic structure of the fibers, giving the resulting thread a more consistent sheen and strength. While modern science might have its own explanations for the luster of the muka, there is something poetic about the idea that the sound of the work itself contributes to the beauty of the material. You pick up another leaf and begin the process again. Nick, scrape, pull. The rhythm is hypnotic, a slow motion dance that draws your focus inward. You start to notice the subtle differences between each leaf. Some are more cooperative, the skin falling away with minimal effort, while others are moody, requiring more pressure and a slower hand. You treat each one with the same level of patience, knowing that a single moment of frustration could result in a snapped fiber or a jagged edge. You are learning the language of the plant through the sensations in your fingertips. It is a slow, methodical education that can't be rushed or bypassed. In our modern world of instant gratification, where we expect everything to be delivered at the push of a button, there is a profound peace in being forced to wait for a plant to give up its secrets. As the pile of white muka grows beside you, you begin to think about the sheer scale of the task. For a single prestigious cloak, you will need thousands of these individual strands. Each one must be scraped, cleaned, and eventually twisted by hand. It is a staggering amount of labor, a mountain of work that you are climbing one leaf at a time. You realize that the cloak isn't just a garment. It is a physical manifestation of time and effort. It is a record of every hour you spent sitting on this bench, every breath you took while the sun moved across the sky. This is why these cloaks carry such immense mana or spiritual prestige. They are not just objects. They are containers for the life force of the weaver and the energy of the land. You take a bundle of the freshly stripped muka and walk toward a nearby stream that flows along the edge of the village. The water is clear and cold, tumbling over smooth, dark stones and creating a soft, bubbling music that fills the air. You kneel at the water's edge and submerge the fibers. The cold water washes away the remaining sap and the bits of green skin that still cling to the strands. You use your fingers to comb through the muka, making sure it is clean and untangled. The water feels icy against your skin, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the sun on your back. It is a refreshing, cleansing sensation that seems to wash away the fatigue of the morning. You watch as the translucent sap swirls away in the current, disappearing into the depths of the stream. There is a certain irony in the fact that this high, prestige material starts its journey in the mud of a swamp and is cleaned in a mountain stream. Yet it ends up draped over the shoulders of the most powerful people in the land. It is a journey of transformation that mirrors the human experience, finding strength and beauty in the raw materials of the earth. You look at the wet muka in your hands. It is heavy now, soaked with water, and it has a duller, more opaque look than when it was dry. You know that as it dries, it will regain its luster, becoming even softer and more pliable. You begin to hang the bundles of fiber over a horizontal pole you have set up in the shade. It is important that they dry slowly and evenly, away from the harsh, direct rays of the afternoon sun, which could make the fibers brittle. As you hang the last of the current batch, you take a moment to look at the line of drying muka. It looks like a series of white waterfalls, frozen in time. The breeze catches them, causing the strands to sway gently, a ghostly movement that is both eerie and beautiful. You feel a sense of accomplishment, a quiet glow in your chest that has nothing to do with the heat of the day. You have taken a raw, green plant and turned it into a luxury material. You are no longer just a harvester, you are a processor, a refiner of the earth's gifts. The boredom you might have felt at the start of the day has been replaced by a deep, meditative calm. You find that you don't even miss the distractions of your modern life. The phone in your pocket, if you had one, would feel like an alien intrusion in this space. You sit back down on your bench and pick up your mussel shell, turning it over in your hands. It is slightly worn now, its edge a little less sharp than it was this morning. You will need to sharpen it again before you continue, but for now, you just enjoy the weight of it. You think about the people who sat in this very spot hundreds of years ago, doing exactly what you are doing. They would have used the same shells, felt the same ache in their shoulders, and watched the same birds flitting through the trees. There is a profound sense of continuity in that thought, a feeling of being a small part of a very long and very beautiful story. You aren't just making a cloak, you are participating in a tradition that connects you to the past and the future. The afternoon is beginning to fade, the shadows of the trees stretching across the clearing like long, dark fingers. The air is cooling, and you can hear the sounds of the village coming back to life. The call of children playing, the rhythmic thud of a wooden mallet in the distance, the smell of food being prepared for the evening meal. You decide to do just one more bundle before you call it a day. You select the leaves carefully, your movements now second nature. Nick, scrape, pull. The sound of the shell is like a heartbeat, steady and reliable. You realize that you have stopped thinking about the worth of it and have started simply being in the moment. The fiber is an extension of your hands, and the shell is an extension of your will. You find yourself wondering about the quirky fringe theory that suggests certain shells were reserved for certain types of cloaks. Some say that a shell found on a stormy beach would produce a fiber with more fire or energy, while a shell from a calm lagoon would produce muka that was more peaceful and easier to weave. While it sounds like the kind of thing you might read on a crystal healing blog today, it reflects the deep spiritual connection the weavers had with their environment. Everything had a spirit, a Maori, and the interaction between the tool and the material was a sacred exchange of energy. You look at your own shell, and wonder what kind of energy it is bringing to your cloak. It feels steady and grounded, a reliable partner in your journey. By the time the sun begins to set, dipping below the horizon in a blaze of orange and purple, you have a significant amount of muka drying on the pole. The white strands seem to catch the last of the light, glowing with an inner radiance that is almost otherworldly. Your hands are tired, your back is stiff, and you are covered in a fine layer of dried sap and dust. But you have never felt more satisfied. You take a final look at the drying muka before you head inside. It is a promise of what is to come, a physical representation of your patience and your skill. Tomorrow, the process of twisting and dyeing will begin. But for tonight, you have done enough. You have unlocked the heart of the Harakeke, and that is a victory worth celebrating with a long, dreamless sleep. As you walk toward your home, you pass the stream again. The water is darker now, reflecting the deep blues and grays of the twilight sky. You stop to wash your hands one last time, the cold water a soothing balm for your tired muscles. You think about the mainstream fact that the extraction of muka was often a communal activity, with groups of weavers sitting together, sharing stories and songs as they worked. While you have spent much of today in solitary reflection, you can imagine the warmth and laughter of a shared workspace. It turns a laborious task into a social event, a way to weave the fabric of a community at the same time as the fabric of a garment. You feel a deep sense of peace as you settle into your bed, the scent of the drying flax still clinging to your skin. The rhythm of the shell is still echoing in your mind, a gentle, pulsing reminder of the day's work. You are a part of the cycle now, a weaver of threads and a keeper of traditions. The journey from the swamp to the shoulder is long and arduous, but you have successfully navigated the first few steps. The softness of the muka is a reward for the hardness of the labor, and you fall asleep with the image of white, shimmering waterfalls dancing behind your eyelids. The world outside is quiet, the forest is at rest, and your own journey into the world of dreams is just beginning, carried along on a tide of silky, white fiber and the ancient wisdom of the mussel shell. The morning air is cool and crisp as you step out from your sleeping mat, the pale light of dawn just beginning to paint the sky in soft shades of violet and gray. Your hands are still a bit stiff from yesterday's labor, and you might notice a faint, greenish stain around your cuticles that reminds you of your battle with the Harakeke leaves. It is a badge of honor, really, a sign that you are becoming one with your craft. Today, the silky, white bundles of muka that you worked so hard to extract are ready for their next transformation. They are beautiful in their natural, shimmering state, but for a cloak of true distinction, you need color, deep, resonant tones that reflect the earth, the forest, and the very shadows of the land. You aren't heading to a store to pick out a bottle of synthetic pigment. Instead, you are heading back into the heart of nature to find the ingredients for a chemistry experiment that has been perfected over centuries. You begin by walking toward the edge of the forest, where the ancient Tāniko trees stand tall and proud. These are the celery pines, and their bark is a treasure trove of tannins. You move slowly, your feet finding the familiar rhythm of the forest floor, where the damp moss feels like a plush, living carpet beneath your toes. You carry a small stone adze, its weight comforting in your hand. When you reach a mature Tāniko, you don't just start hacking away. There is a deep respect for the tree, a silent acknowledgement that it is giving a part of itself to your work. You carefully strip away small sections of the outer bark, revealing the reddish-brown inner layer. The scent is immediate and intoxicating, woody, sharp, and slightly sweet, like the smell of a rain-drenched forest floor after a long dry spell. You gather the bark into a woven basket, the rough texture of the wood pressing against the fibers. It takes a surprising amount of bark to create a dye bath strong enough to saturate the muka. You might find yourself thinking that if you had to do this for every shirt in your modern closet, you'd probably just stick to wearing white for the rest of your life. It is a slow, methodical process that rewards the patient and punishes the hurried. Once your basket is full, you make your way back to the village, where a small fire is already crackling in a pit lined with smooth, heat-resistant stones. Since your ancestors didn't use ceramic or metal pots for boiling, you have to get a bit more creative with your thermodynamics. You have a large, hollowed-out wooden trough filled with fresh water from the stream. Nearby, several large stones are sitting in the heart of the fire, glowing a dull, angry red as they soak up the heat. Using a pair of long, green wooden tongs, you carefully lift one of the stones and lower it into the water. You hear the soft, angry hiss as the heat is transferred, and a plume of white steam rises into the air, carrying the scent of the wood and the damp earth. You repeat this process, adding stone after stone, until the water begins to roll and bubble. It is a primitive but highly effective way to cook, though it does require a certain level of coordination to avoid splashing boiling water on your feet. It's certainly more dramatic than turning a knob on a stove, and it gives you a much greater appreciation for the simple act of heating water. You add the Tāniko bark to the boiling water, and almost immediately, the clear liquid begins to turn a deep, rich amber. As the tannins leach out of the wood, the color intensifies, shifting from a golden honey to a dark, burnt sienna. This bark acts as both a dye and a mordant, a substance that helps the color fix itself permanently to the fibers. A mainstream historical fact is that Tāniko was so effective as a preservative and dye that it remained in use well into the 19th century, even after European textiles became common. You take your bundles of muka and gently submerge them in the steaming liquid. You use a long stick to push them down, making sure every strand is evenly coated. The fibers, which were once as white as a summer cloud, now begin to soak up the warmth of the forest. While the muka soaks in its tannin bath, you prepare for the second stage of the dyeing process, which involves a trip to a very specific, somewhat secret location. You are looking for Peru. To the uninitiated, Peru might just look like ordinary swamp mud, but to a weaver, it is liquid gold. This isn't just any dirt, it is an iron-rich, anaerobic bog mud that has been aging for years, hidden beneath the roots of the reeds and the still, dark water of the wetlands. You walk along the edge of the marsh, testing the ground with a long stick, until you find a spot where the mud is particularly dark and oily looking. You reach down and plunge your hands into the mud. It is cold, thick, and surprisingly smooth, lacking the grittiness of river sand. It feels like heavy cream, but with the weight of the earth behind it. You gather large handfuls of the black sludge, placing them into a separate container. The smell is sulphurous and earthy, a reminder of the slow, hidden life that exists beneath the surface of the swamp. You might think that this feels a bit like a high-end spa treatment. And honestly, your skin probably hasn't been this exfoliated in years, but the goal here isn't soft hands. It's the deep, permanent black that only Paru can provide. There is a quirky, fringe tidbit of history that suggests some ancient weavers believed the Paru had to be fed with certain leaves or scraps of food to keep its dyeing power strong. While it sounds like superstition, modern soil science tells us that adding organic matter to these bogs helps maintain the chemical environment that keeps the iron in a state ready to react with tannins. Whether it was science or spirits, the result was the same, a black, so deep it seemed to swallow the light. Historians still argue whether the most prestigious cloaks were dyed entirely in Paru, or if the black was reserved for the borders and decorative patterns. As the process of mud, dyeing can actually weaken the fibers over long periods of time. If not done correctly, you return to your dye station and lift the muka out of the bark bath. It is now a beautiful, warm tan color. You let the excess liquid drip back into the trough. Then you take the fibers over to the container of Paru. This is where the magic, or rather, the chemistry, happens. As you massage the black mud into the tannin-soaked fibers, a chemical reaction occurs between the iron in the mud and the tannic acid from the bark. Almost instantly, the tan fibers begin to turn a dark, inky black. It is a satisfying, dramatic transformation, like watching a photograph develop in a dark room. You work the mud deep into the heart of the bundles, ensuring that no hint of the original white remains. Your hands are now completely black, stained by the iron and the tannins. You look like you've been working in a coal mine, or perhaps you're just really into the early Gothic aesthetic. The stain will stay on your skin for days, a lingering reminder of the work you've done. You leave the muka to sit in the mud for several hours, allowing the reaction to fully set. The air is warm now, the midday sun beating down on the clearing, and the smell of the bark and the swamp mud mingles in a way that is oddly comforting. It is the smell of the land being pressed into service, of nature being harnessed by human hands. As you wait, you might find yourself reflecting on how much patience this entire endeavor requires. In our world, if we want a black shirt, we go to a store and buy one, never thinking about the complex chain of events that produced that color. Here, every shade of black, red or yellow, is a labor of love. You think about the different colors available to you. While black and brown are the staples, you could also seek out the lichen that produces a soft yellow, or certain berries that offer a fleeting purple. But the black of the Paru is the most respected, the color of power, of the night, and of the deep earth. You take a break and sit in the shade of a large fern, its fronds arching over you like a giant, green umbrella. You watch a small fantail bird flitting about, its tail spreading and closing with a soft, rhythmic movement. The bird is curious, coming close to inspect your work before darting away again. You feel a deep sense of stillness, a disconnection from the frantic pace of the modern world. Here, the only deadline is the setting of the sun and the cooling of the dye bath. You are living in a time where the process is just as important as the product, where the journey of the thread is a story in itself. After several hours, it is time to rinse the muka. You take the blackened bundles down to the stream, where the water is running clear and cold over the rocks. You submerge the fibers, and a cloud of dark mud billows out into the current, swirling away like smoke. You scrub the fibers gently, washing away the grit of the Peru, but leaving the deep, permanent color behind. As the water clears, the muka emerges looking sleek and sophisticated. The black has a subtle, metallic sheen to it, a depth that synthetic dyes can never quite replicate. It looks like the feathers of a raven or the surface of a deep, still pond at midnight. You hang the blackened muka on your drying pole alongside the natural white strands. The contrast is striking, the purity of the white next to the intensity of the black. It looks like a giant, abstract painting swaying in the breeze. You notice how the texture of the fiber has changed slightly. It feels a little heavier, a little more substantial. You have fundamentally altered its character, giving it a new identity that will carry through the rest of the weaving process. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon, casting long, golden shadows across the village, you take a moment to look at your stained hands. They are a map of your day, the green of the flax, the brown of the bark, and the black of the mud. You feel a strange sense of pride in these stains. They are the marks of a creator, of someone who isn't afraid to get their hands dirty in the pursuit of beauty. You think about the crocodile dung sunscreen of the ancient Egyptians, a fact we discussed in a previous journey, and you realize that every culture has its own strange and wonderful ways of using the earth's less than glamorous materials for something useful. Mud might just be dirt to some, but to you, it is the key to a masterpiece. The evening air is beginning to cool, and the first stars are starting to twinkle in the darkening sky. You gather up your tools, the stone adze, the wooden tongs, the baskets, and prepare to head inside. The drying muka rustles softly in the wind, a sound like 1,000 tiny whispers. You think about the next step, the actual weaving, where these individual threads will be joined together to create a cohesive whole. But for now, you are content with the colors you have created. You have taken the secrets of the tree and the swamp and woven them into the very soul of your materials. You walk back toward your home, your footsteps light on the earth. The village is settling into its evening routine, the smell of cooking fires and the sound of low, murmuring voices filling the air. You feel a deep, physical exhaustion, but it is a good kind of tired, the kind that comes from a day of meaningful, tangible work. You wash your face and your black, stained arms in a basin of cool water, though you know the color won't fully fade for a while. It's okay. You don't mind carrying the mark of the paru with you as you go to sleep. As you lie down on your mat, the image of the black and white fibers dancing in the wind is the last thing you see before you close your eyes. You feel the weight of the day's labor lifting, replaced by a sense of calm anticipation. The colors are set, the fibers are ready, and the rhythm of the weave is waiting for you in the morning. You drift off to sleep, the scent of the Tāniko bark still faintly clinging to your skin, a whispered promise of the beauty that is yet to come. The forest is quiet, the swamp is still, and you are exactly where you belong, a small but vital part of a tradition that stretches back through the mists of time. You might dream of the mud pits and the bubbling troughs, of the way the heat of the fire felt against your face, and the cold of the stream against your hands. These sensations are the building blocks of your memory, the threads that connect you to the physical world. In your dreams, the black muka becomes a vast night sky, and the white muka becomes the stars, and you are the one who brings them together. The journey is long, but the path is clear, and the colors of the earth will guide you home. The night is long and peaceful, the air in your home still and warm. You sleep deeply, your breathing steady and slow, perfectly synchronized with the quiet pulse of the land. Tomorrow, you will begin the slow, rhythmic dance of the weave, but for now, there is only the rest, the recovery, and the quiet satisfaction of a day well spent in the company of the trees and the mud. You are a dyer of threads, a seeker of color, and a keeper of the ancient ways, and the world is better for the beauty you are bringing into it. The morning light is soft and hazy as it spills across the floor of your weaving space, a quiet corner of the village where the air is still and the only sound is the distant, rhythmic wash of the waves against the shore. You have spent the last several days preparing your materials, and now the time has come to actually begin the structure of the cloak. You look at the 2 wooden poles lying on the grass beside you. These are your truturu, the upright weaving sticks that will serve as your only frame. They are simple, carved from a sturdy wood and smoothed by years of handling. But in the world of the weaver, they are sacred. You take the first pole and press it firmly into the soft earth of the floor, feeling the resistance of the ground until it stands straight and true. You do the same with the second pole, placing it exactly the width of your planned cloak away from the first. There is no complicated machinery here, no heavy wooden loom with pedals and shuttles like you might find in a medieval European workshop. It is just you, 2 sticks, and the earth. You might find yourself thinking that this setup looks a bit like the world's most minimalist tent, or perhaps the beginning of a very confusing DIY project from a modern furniture store. If you have ever tried to assemble a bookshelf using only a tiny metal wrench and a series of wordless diagrams, you know the feeling of looking at a pile of parts and wondering how they will ever become a functional object. But unlike that bookshelf, which might end up slightly tilted or with a few extra screws left over, the cloak requires absolute precision from the very first thread. You are not just building a garment, you are creating a grid of history and intent. You take a long, strong cord of muka and tie it horizontally between the 2 poles. This is the sacred thread, the aho, the foundation upon which everything else will rest. As you begin to hang the vertical threads, the winu, over this foundation cord, you realize that your fingers have developed a memory of their own. You pick up a bundle of the natural white muka, now dry and incredibly soft, and begin to loop the strands over the horizontal line. Each vertical thread must be exactly the same length, hanging down toward the ground like a fringe of silk. You move from left to right, your hands performing a slow, steady dance. The sensation of the muka against your skin is wonderful. It is cool, slightly textured, and surprisingly strong. You can feel the ghost of the green flax leaf inside the fiber, a memory of the wetlands where this journey began, a mainstream historical fact that often surprises people is that Maori weaving is technically not weaving at all, but a complex form of finger twining known as watu. In traditional weaving, A shuttle carries a horizontal thread back and forth through a set of vertical ones. Here, there is no shuttle. Your fingers are the only tools. You use 2 horizontal threads at once, twisting them around each vertical strand in a series of tiny, precise knots. It is a slow, meditative process that requires a level of focus that is hard to find in our world of constant digital pings and rapid-fire notifications. You aren't just passing a thread through, you are locking each vertical strand into place. One by one, row by row, you find yourself settling into a rhythm. Your thumb and forefinger grasp the 2 horizontal threads, crossing them over each other with a gentle, rolling motion. You feel the vertical thread being captured in the twist, a tiny, secure embrace that adds 1 more millimeter to the growing fabric. You hear the soft, rustling sound of the muka as it moves through your fingers, a noise that is like a faint whisper in the quiet room. It is a repetitive motion, a physical mantra that clears your mind of everything but the task at hand. Your breathing slows, matching the pace of your hands, and you feel a sense of calm spreading through your body. If you think your daily commute is stressful, try spending 10 hours a day twisting fibers that are thinner than a strand of hair. It is a different kind of intensity, one that demands patience rather than speed. There is a quirky, fringe tidbit of history that suggests the Taruturu poles were often treated as living entities with their own personalities. Some weavers believed that if the poles were placed too close to a doorway, they would become distracted by the people passing by, leading to mistakes in the pattern. You look at your own poles, standing silent and steady in the dim light, and you can almost believe it. They feel like silent companions, holding the weight of your work, so that you can focus on the intricate details. They are the anchors of your world, providing the stability you need to create something beautiful from the chaos of raw fiber. Historians still argue whether the transition from the bark, cloth traditions of the Pacific Islands to this unique style of finger twining happened gradually over several centuries, or if it was a rapid response to the colder climate of Aotearoa. Some suggest that the lack of suitable bark for cloth forced the early settlers to reinvent their entire textile culture from scratch, leading to the birth of watu. Imagine moving from a tropical paradise to a land of frost and snow, and realizing your clothes are essentially made of paper. You would probably become a master of weaving pretty quickly too, out of sheer survival instinct. It is a testament to human ingenuity, the ability to look at a swamp plant and see a warm, protective cloak. As the first few rows of the weave begin to take shape, you can see the structure of the garment emerging. It is a pale, shimmering surface, the vertical lines of the wenu held firmly in place by the horizontal rows of the aho. You notice how the light catches the fibers, creating a subtle play of shadow and highlight. You decide to introduce a row of the black, dyed muka you prepared earlier. The contrast is immediate and striking, a sharp line of midnight cutting through the ivory field. It feels like you are writing a story in the fabric, each row a new sentence, each twist a chosen word. The physical toll of the work starts to make itself felt in your body. Your lower back is tight from sitting on the woven mat, and your neck feels a bit stiff from looking down at the weave. You take a moment to stretch, reaching your arms high above your head and feeling the satisfying release in your shoulders. You look around the room, noticing the small details you missed before, the way the dust motes dance in a stray beam of sunlight, the scent of the dried grass floor, the low hum of a bumblebee outside the window. You realize that you aren't just making a cloak, you are participating in the life of the village. The sounds of daily life filter in from outside, the rhythmic thud of a wooden mallet, the laughter of children, the occasional call of a bird. These sounds are the background music to your work, a gentle reminder that you are part of a larger whole. You return to your weaving, your hands finding their place with ease. You think about the crocodile, dung sunscreen, of the ancient Egyptians, and the way people throughout history have used the materials at their disposal to solve the problems of their environment. For the Maori, the challenge was the cold and the damp, and the solution was the Harakeke. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the plant and the traditions that have taught you how to use it. You aren't just following a set of instructions. You are channeling the wisdom of generations of weavers who sat exactly where you are sitting, doing exactly what you are doing. The morning fades into the afternoon, and the light in the room shifts from a bright, cool white to a warm, golden amber. You have completed several inches of the weave now, and the fabric feels substantial and heavy in your hands. It is much thicker and stronger than any modern machine-made cloth. It has a life of its own, a flexibility and a resilience that comes from the hand twining process. You run your palm over the surface, feeling the thousands of tiny knots that you have tied. Each one is a small victory, a moment of focus and care. You might think that this is a bit like knitting, but without the safety net of being able to easily unravel. A mistake. If you mess up a row in watu, you have to carefully untwist every single knot, a task that is as tedious as it sounds. It encourages you to be present, to be careful, and to honor the material. There is a certain irony in the fact that we today value things that are handmade as luxury items, while for most of human history, there was no other way for things to be made. Every piece of clothing, every tool, every basket was the result of someone's time and skill. You feel a connection to that older way of being, a world where objects had value because of the labor invested in them. Your cloak is not just a piece of clothing, it is a repository of your time. If you spent 1,000 hours on a single garment, you would probably treat it with a bit more respect than a $5 T-shirt from a big box store. As you continue to work, the rhythm of the weave becomes almost like a form of prayer. You find yourself thinking about the person who will eventually wear this cloak, the manner it will give them, the protection it will provide. You are weaving your own energy into the fabric, your own thoughts and intentions. Some say that a weaver's mood can be seen in the tension of the threads. A frustrated or angry weaver will produce a tight, uneven fabric, while a calm and peaceful weaver will produce a smooth, harmonious one. You check your own tension, finding it to be steady and even. You are in the flow, a state of mind where time seems to disappear, and the only thing that matters is the next twist of the thread. You decide to take a short break to walk down to the stream and clear your head. The air outside is warm and fragrant, the smell of blooming manuka flowers filling the air with a sweet, honey-like scent. You stand by the water, watching it flow over the mossy rocks, and you feel the tension leaving your body. The natural world is a constant source of inspiration and renewal. You think about the fringe theory, that the geometric patterns used in Maori weaving were originally inspired by the way water ripples around stones, or the way the wind moves through the leaves of the forest. It makes sense. When you spend that much time in nature, its patterns inevitably find their way into your work. When you return to your turuturu, the shadows have grown longer, and the room is filled with a soft, dappled light. You pick up the threads again, feeling the familiarity of the weight and the texture. You are working on a section of the border now, where you are using a more complex triple twist technique. It requires even more concentration, as you are managing 3 horizontal threads at once. It is a bit like a mental puzzle, keeping track of which thread goes over and which goes under. You find a quiet joy in the challenge, the feeling of your brain and your hands working in perfect unison. You think about the mainstream fact that high-ranking chiefs would often have several cloaks, each for a different occasion. Some were for war, reinforced with extra layers of tough fiber to act as a form of armor. Others were for ceremonies, adorned with feathers and intricate borders to display the wearer's status. Your cloak is intended for a person of great prestige, and you feel the weight of that responsibility. It pushes you to be better, to make every knot perfect, to ensure that the garment is worthy of its future owner. As the sun begins to set, casting a deep orange glow across the room, you decide to finish just one more row. The black muka looks almost purple in the twilight, a rich, regal color that seems to glow from within. You pull the final knot tight, feeling a sense of deep satisfaction. You have made significant progress today, and the foundation of the cloak is now solid and secure. You look at the fabric hanging between the poles, a pale, shimmering curtain of potential. It is a beautiful thing, even in its unfinished state. You begin to tidy up your space, gathering the remaining bundles of muka and placing them neatly in a basket. You take the turuturu poles out of the ground, being careful not to disturb the weave, and lean them against the wall. The fabric hangs limp now, but you know that tomorrow it will be back on the frame, growing row by row. You feel a pleasant tiredness in your limbs, the result of a day of productive, creative labor. You wash your hands in a basin of cool water, the sensation of the dust and the sap being washed away a perfect end to the day. As you walk back toward the main part of the village, you look up at the sky. The first stars are beginning to appear, and the air is cooling rapidly. You feel a sense of peace and contentment, a connection to the world around you and the work you are doing. You are a weaver, a creator of threads, a builder of stories. The journey of the cloak is well underway, and you are ready for whatever the next stage brings. You think about the crock, dung, and the minimalist tents, and you chuckle to yourself, a quiet, sleepy sound in the gathering dark. The world is full of strange and wonderful things, and you are lucky enough to be part of one of them. You settle into your bed, the rhythm of the watu still pulsing in your mind. Over, under, twist over, under, twist. It is a heartbeat, a lullaby, a promise. You fall asleep with the image of the white and black threads dancing behind your eyes, a tapestry of dreams that is just as beautiful and complex as the cloak you are creating. The night is quiet, the village is at rest, and the turuturu poles stand silent in the dark, waiting for the morning light to return. You are exactly where you need to be, and the weave is waiting for you. As the final light of the day fades into the deep blue of the night, you feel a profound sense of belonging. You are not just making an object, you are weaving yourself into the history of your people. Each thread is a connection to the past, each knot a commitment to the future. You are a small part of a very large and very old story, and for tonight, that is enough. You breathe in the cool night air, the scent of the forest and the sea mingling in a way that is both familiar and new. You are at peace, and the world is at rest. The journey of the cloak continues, one row at a time, one day at a time. It is a slow, beautiful process that cannot be rushed, and you are grateful for the time it takes. It is a lesson in patience, in focus, and in the beauty of the handmade. You are a weaver, and this is your craft. You close your eyes, the quiet sounds of the night lulling you into a deep and restful sleep, where the only thing that matters is the rhythm of the weave and the softness of the muka. The morning sun has climbed a little higher, casting a warm, buttery light through the open doorway of your weaving space. The air is still, save for the occasional, playful dance of a dust mote catching a sunbeam. You find yourself sitting back on your woven mat, the two turuturu poles standing like patient sentinels before you. The cloak is growing, a steady expanse of pale, shimmering muka that feels surprisingly strong and cool to the touch. But today, the rhythm of your work is about to change. Beside you sit several small, hand-woven baskets, each one filled to the brim with a different kind of treasure. These are not beads or stones, but feathers, thousands of them, collected over many months from the birds of the deep forest. You reach out and run your hand over the top of the closest basket, and the sensation is like touching a cloud. The feathers are incredibly soft, light as air, and they carry a faint, wild scent of the high canopy and the morning dew. You pick up a single feather from the wood pigeon, the kariru. It is a brilliant, iridescent green that shifts to a deep, royal purple as you turn it in the light. It feels impossibly delicate, yet you know it has the strength to carry a heavy bird through the stormy skies of the mountain ranges. To your left, there is a basket of white feathers from the breast of the same bird, as pure as the snow on the distant peaks. To your right, the brown, hair-like feathers of the kiwi, which are surprisingly warm and possess a texture unlike any other bird on earth. You are about to transform your plain flax garment into a kahu huru huru, a feathered cloak that will shimmer with every movement of the wearer. This isn't just about decoration. It is about adding layers of warmth, protection, and the very spirit of the forest itself. You might think of this as the 14th century version of a high, end-down jacket, though it is far more stylish and definitely doesn't make that annoying swishing sound when you walk through a quiet room. You begin the process by selecting a small bundle of feathers. You don't just toss them onto the weave and hope they stick. Each feather must be individually tucked into the twining process. As you work your way across the row, you take a white keru feather and place the quill end against the vertical muka thread, exactly where you are about to make your next twist. With a practiced motion of your thumb and forefinger, you wrap the horizontal aho threads around both the fiber and the quill, locking the feather into place. You fold the quill back and secure it with the next twist, ensuring it can never slide out. It is a slow, meticulous task that requires a gentle touch. If you pull too hard, you might snap the delicate quill. If you are too loose, the feather will droop. You are looking for that perfect, snug fit that allows the feather to lay flat against the fabric. As you move across the row, adding feather after feather, you start to see the transformation. The pale muka is slowly disappearing beneath a layer of soft, overlapping white. It looks like the scales of a mythical fish or the surface of a frozen lake. You realize that you are building a landscape on the back of the cloak. You decide to create a pattern, introducing the green feathers in a series of geometric diamonds that will catch the light. A mainstream historical fact that many people find interesting is that feathered cloaks actually became the height of fashion in the mid-19th century. Before that, the most prestigious garments were often made from the skins of the legendary Polynesian dog, the cur. But as the dogs became rarer and the artistry of the weavers evolved, the kahu huru rose to prominence, becoming the ultimate symbol of status and manner. You find yourself getting lost in the rhythm of the work. Tuck, twist, fold. Tuck, twist, fold. The feathers are so light that they occasionally catch a stray breeze and flutter in your hand, as if they are trying to fly away one last time. You have to be patient, calming them with your fingers before securing them into their new home. It is a meditative process that makes you feel incredibly connected to the natural world. You think about the birds that provided these feathers. They weren't just random animals, they were messengers of the gods, residents of the sacred forest. There is a quirky, fringe tidbit that suggests some ancient weavers could tell the health of a forest by the oiliness and shine of the feathers they were gifted. If the feathers were dull, it was a sign that the rains had been too heavy or the fruit of the miro tree had been scarce. It's a bit like having a biological weather report sitting in a basket next to you. Historians still argue whether the technique of weaving feathers into the fabric was a direct evolution of the much simpler rain capes, which used unstripped flax tags to shed water, or if it was a completely independent artistic innovation. Some believe that the idea of using feathers was inspired by the sight of chiefs wearing whole bird skins for warmth, which the weavers then sought to replicate in a more refined and durable way. Regardless of how it started, the result is a masterpiece of technical skill. You are essentially creating a new skin, one that is both breathable and incredibly insulating. If you've ever shivered in a drafty house, despite wearing 3 sweaters, you can appreciate the engineering that goes into a garment designed to trap heat so effectively. The physical sensation of the work is quite different today. The muka was cool and slightly rough, but the feathers are warm and silky. As the layer of feathers grows, it begins to rest against your lap, providing a cozy, comforting weight. It is a bit like working under a very expensive, very beautiful blanket. You find your eyelids growing heavy as the soft texture and the repetitive motion lull you into a state of deep relaxation. The room is quiet, the only sound being the soft, dry rustle of the feathers as you move them, a sound like 1,000 tiny fans whispering in the dark. You take a deep breath, inhaling the faint, earthy scent of the forest that still clings to the quills. It is a peaceful, grounding aroma that makes you feel as though you are sitting in the heart of an ancient grove. You decide to switch to the kiwi feathers for a section near the top. These are very different from the Kakahu feathers. They are long, brown, and have a hairy texture that is incredibly soft to the touch. The kiwi is a bird of the night, a creature of the shadows, and its feathers carry a sense of mystery and quiet strength. As you weave them in, the cloak takes on a darker, more understated elegance. The kiwi feathers don't shimmer like the Kakahu. They absorb the light, creating a deep, rich texture that looks like fine fur. You think about the croc dung sunscreen and the minimalist tents of our previous discussions, and you smile at how every culture finds its own unique way to use the gifts of its environment. For you, the kiwi is a special bird, and its feathers are a gift of warmth and protection. As you work, you might find yourself making a little joke to yourself about how much easier this would be if you just had a giant bottle of glue. But then you realize that the beauty of the cloak lies in its integrity. Every feather is held in place by the strength of the muka and the skill of your hands. There are no shortcuts here, no hidden seams, no cheap fillers. It is a work of pure, unadulterated craft. You imagine a modern fashion designer trying to replicate this process and having a minor breakdown over the sheer amount of time required. It is a slow fashion in the truest sense of the word. You aren't just making a garment for a season. You are making an heirloom that will be passed down through generations, carrying the stories and the manner of everyone who wears it. The afternoon light is beginning to turn a deep, golden amber, casting long shadows across the floor. You have completed a significant portion of the feathered section, and the cloak is starting to look magnificent. The white, green, and brown feathers create a vibrant, living tapestry that seems to change color as the light shifts. You run your hand over the finished part, and the feathers spring back with a gentle resilience. It is a wonderful feeling, a physical manifestation of your patience and your care. You feel a deep sense of pride in what you have accomplished today. You have taken the separate elements of the forest and the wetland and joined them together into a harmonious whole. You take a break to drink some cool water and stretch your legs. The village is quiet, the heat of the day having settled into a mellow warmth. You look out toward the forest, and you can see the tall trees swaying gently in the breeze. You feel a sense of gratitude for the birds and the plants that have provided the materials for your work. You are a part of a great cycle of life, a weaver who bridges the gap between the wild world and the human world. You think about the fringe theory that some feathers were believed to possess the power of flight, even after they were woven into a cloak, helping the wearer to feel lighter and more agile. While it might just be a poetic way of describing a well-made garment, you can certainly feel the lightness of the feathers as you pick them up. You return to your mat for one final session before the sun sets. You are working on the collar now, where you want to use the vibrant red feathers from under the wing of the kaka parrot. These are the most precious feathers of all, a brilliant, fiery red that symbolizes high rank and fierce leadership. They are small and delicate, and they require an even lighter touch than the others. As you tuck the first red feather into the weave, it looks like a spark of fire against the white muka. It is a bold, powerful color that demands attention. You move slowly, making sure each red feather is perfectly positioned to create a smooth, velvet-like border. The sound of your work has changed again. The red feathers are shorter and stiffer, making a tiny, clicking sound as you secure the quills. It is a rhythmic, percussive noise that blends with the soft rustle of the other feathers. You find yourself moving in time with the sound, your hands and your mind in perfect sync. You are no longer thinking about the steps. You are simply being the weave. The cloak is an extension of yourself, a reflection of your internal state. You feel a deep, profound calm, a sense of rightness that is hard to put into words. You are a weaver, and this is your purpose. As the sun begins to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, you decide to finish the current row of kaka feathers. The red glows in the fading light, looking even more vibrant against the darkening room. You pull the final knot tight and sit back, looking at your work. The cloak is heavy now. A thick, luxurious mantle of feathers that looks like it belongs to a king. You feel a sense of awe at what you have created. It is hard to believe that this started as a few green leaves in a swamp. The transformation is complete, and the cloak has found its voice. You begin to tidy up your workspace, carefully placing the remaining feathers back into their baskets and covering them to keep out the dust. You take the turuturu poles out of the ground and lean the cloak against the wall. It stands there, a shimmering, feathered presence in the twilight. You feel a pleasant ache in your fingers and a gentle tiredness in your spirit. It has been a long day of intense focus, but it has been incredibly rewarding. You wash your hands in the basin of cool water, the sensation of the feathers still lingering in your fingertips. As you walk back toward your home, the first stars are beginning to appear in the velvet sky. The air is cool and fragrant, the scent of the evening flowers mingling with the salty tang of the sea. You feel a deep sense of peace and contentment. You have spent the day in the company of beauty and tradition, and you have added your own chapter to the story of the weave. You think about the crock dung and the minimalist tents, and you laugh softly to yourself. The world is a strange and beautiful place, and you are lucky to be a part of it. You settle into your bed, the rhythm of the feather, tuck still pulsing in your mind. Tuck, twist, fold, tuck, twist, fold. It is a heartbeat, a lullaby, a promise of the work to come. You fall asleep with the image of the red, green, and white feathers dancing behind your eyes, a vibrant tapestry of dreams that is just as beautiful and complex as the cloak you are creating. The night is quiet, the forest is at rest, and the turuturu poles stand silent in the dark, waiting for the morning light to return. You are exactly where you need to be, and the weave is waiting for you. As you drift off, you imagine the person who will one day wear this cloak. You see them standing on a high cliff, the wind catching the feathers and making them shimmer like the surface of the sea. You feel the pride and the manner that the garment will bring them, and you know that all your hard work has been worth it. You are not just a weaver of threads, you are a weaver of spirits, a keeper of the flame of tradition. And with that thought, you sink into a deep, dreamless sleep, the soft rustle of the forest floor echoing in your ears like a gentle, eternal song. The weight of the day's work melts away, replaced by the weightless sensation of the feathers in your dreams. You are flying now, soaring over the wetlands and the forests, seeing the world through the eyes of the Kararu and the Kaka. The landscape is a beautiful, shifting pattern of green and brown and white, a giant cloak laid out across the earth. You feel a sense of freedom and joy, a connection to the vastness of the universe. And then the image fades, leaving you in the quiet, warm darkness of your home, where the only sound is the steady, peaceful rhythm of your own breathing. You are a weaver, and the world is your loom. Every day is a new row, every action a new twist of the thread. You are creating something beautiful, something meaningful, something that will last. And for tonight, that is enough. The journey continues tomorrow, but for now, there is only the rest, the recovery, and the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. You are at peace, and the world is at rest. The feathers are still, the muka is strong, and the story of the cloak is unfolding exactly as it should, one quiet, beautiful moment at a time. The sun has reached its peak once again. But today the heat feels different, filtered through the thick canopy of the trees and the heavy, humid air of the afternoon. You are sitting in the same familiar spot, but the work before you has shifted in its very nature. The large, feathered body of the cloak is mostly complete, a luxurious weight that rests across your knees like a sleeping animal. Now, however, you have reached the lower border, the place where the storytelling truly begins to take a sharp, geometric turn. This is the realm of Tāniko, a specialized weaving technique that transforms the simple vertical and horizontal threads into a complex language of triangles, diamonds, and zigzags. You reach for your smaller bundles of muka, those you dyed so carefully in the black mud and the bark of the Tāniko tree. You also have a small stash of fibers dyed a soft, pale yellow with the lichen from the rocks, and of course, the brilliant red of the kaka feather's dust. These are your pigments, and the vertical threads are your canvas. You might think of this as the original high-resolution display, a way of creating intricate graphics long before the first computer programmer ever dreamed of a pixel. Each tiny knot you tie is like a single dot of color on a screen, and when you step back, those dots merge into a narrative that can be read by anyone who knows the code. If you have ever spent an entire afternoon trying to build a complex structure in a sandbox video game, one block at a time, you know the strange mix of frustration and zen-like focus that comes with this kind of work. One misplaced block, or in your case, one misplaced twist of the thread, and the entire mountain or staircase you are building will look slightly glitchy. You have to be precise, counting every single vertical strand as you pass your colored horizontal threads through them. It is a mental workout that would make a chess grandmaster lean back and take a deep, restorative breath. You begin with the pattern known as Aotearoa, the pathway of the sea. You take 2 black threads and 2 white ones, twisting them in a specific sequence that creates a series of sharp, rhythmic zigzags. As you work, you can almost see the waves of the Pacific crashing against the rugged coastline of Aotearoa. The pattern moves across the fabric in a restless, energetic flow, a reminder of the journey your ancestors took across the vast, blue emptiness of the ocean. You feel the texture of the dyed threads. The black muka is slightly stiffer than the natural white, a result of the iron, rich mud having settled deep within the fibers. It gives the border a structural integrity that the softer, feathered body lacks. You hear the faint, dry rustle of the threads as they cross each other, a sound like a tiny, secret conversation being held just out of earshot, a mainstream historical fact that is often overlooked is that Tāniko was not just for cloaks. It was a highly versatile art form used for headbands, belts, and even the borders of floor mats. It represented the pinnacle of Maori textile engineering, requiring a completely different set of hand motions than the main watu weave. While the body of the cloak is about warmth and protection, the Tāniko border is about identity and heritage. It is where you announce who you are and where you come from. You find yourself smiling at the thought that your clothing is essentially a wearable biography. You aren't just wearing a pattern, you are wearing your family tree and your local geography. As you move into the next section of the border, you decide to weave the putama, the stairway to heaven. This pattern consists of a series of stepped levels that rise and fall across the fabric. It represents the levels of learning and the different states of being that a person must pass through to reach the highest peaks of knowledge. You use the red and the pale yellow threads here, creating a warm, vibrant contrast to the black and white of the sea pathway. Each step you weave is a tiny accomplishment, a physical representation of the hours you have spent mastering this craft. You might find yourself thinking that if modern school diplomas were woven like this, people might take their graduation ceremonies a bit more seriously. There is something profoundly satisfying about seeing your progress measured in millimeters of perfectly executed geometric precision. Historians still argue whether the specific triangular motifs found in Tāniko were originally intended to represent specific star constellations used for navigation, or if they were purely abstract representations of the natural world, such as the teeth of a shark or the scales of a fish. Some scholars believe that the patterns served as a mnemonic device, helping the weaver to remember long, complex genealogies or historical events. Imagine if your favorite sweater also doubled as a history book and a GPS map. You'd certainly be a lot more careful about where you spilled your soup. This connection between the visual and the oral tradition is what makes the cloak more than just an object. It is a vessel for memory, a living record of a culture that didn't rely on written words to preserve its soul. The afternoon sun is beginning to cast long, golden fingers across your workspace, making the colors of the muka glow with an inner fire. You feel a bit of a zoom out moment, where your eyes struggle to refocus after staring at the tiny threads for so long. You blink, looking out at the green expanse of the forest beyond the village. The world outside is soft and organic, full of curves and shadows, while the work in your hands is sharp and disciplined. This contrast is part of the magic of Tāniko. You are taking the wild materials of the earth and imposing a divine geometry upon them. You are bringing order to the chaos of the flax grove. There is a quirky, fringe tidbit of history that suggests some weavers believed the geometric patterns were actually a form of magnetic mapping, designed to help the wearer stay oriented to the earth's natural energies. While it sounds like something you might hear at a late night bonfire in a modern hippie commune, it speaks to the deep sense of harmony that these patterns were intended to create between the human body and the planet. You reach for the red muka again, your fingers moving with a grace that has been honed by days of repetition. You are weaving the Niho Taniwa, the teeth of the dragon. This pattern is made of sharp, interlocking triangles that represent the power and protection of the guardian spirits that dwell in the deep waters and the dark forests. It is a fierce, protective pattern, intended to ward off negative energy and give the wearer the strength of a predator. As you pull the threads tight, you feel a sense of security, as if you are literally weaving a shield around the person who will wear this garment. The red is so bright it almost seems to vibrate against the black background, a visual heartbeat that keeps the cloak alive. The physical strain of the Tāniko is different from the watu, because you are managing multiple colors at once. Your fingers are constantly dancing, picking up one thread and dropping another, crossing and recrossing in a complex web of motion. Your hands feel light and agile. Despite the hours of work, you have entered that rare state of flow, where the boundary between your mind and your hands seems to dissolve. You aren't thinking about the pattern anymore. You are simply allowing the pattern to emerge through you. It is a peaceful, almost trance-like experience that makes the rest of the world feel very far away. You don't hear the dogs barking in the village, or the sound of the wind in the trees. You only hear the rhythm of the weave and the steady pulse of your own breathing. You find yourself chuckling at the memory of the crock, dung, and the minimalist tents we talked about earlier. In those moments, the world felt a bit more chaotic and survival-oriented. But here, in the middle of a Tāniko border, you are in a world of pure aesthetics and high-level intellect. You are solving complex mathematical problems with your fingers, balancing symmetry and proportion without the help of a ruler or a calculator. It makes you realize that primitive is a completely useless word when it comes to describing human creativity. The person who designed these patterns was just as much of a genius as the person who designed the silicon chips in your phone. They just used different materials to express their understanding of the universe. As the shadows in the room deepen, the yellow threads take on a ghostly, silvery sheen. You are working on the final row of the border now, a simple, elegant line of white that will act as a frame for the entire composition. You move slowly, making sure that every knot is identical in tension to the one before it. Consistency is the hallmark of a master weaver, and you want this cloak to be perfect. You think about the historians still argue, part again, specifically about whether the arrival of European glass beads in the 1800s changed the way these patterns were perceived. When weavers started incorporating bright blue and green beads into their work, did the traditional meanings shift? Or did the beads just become a new way to express the same ancient stories? It is an interesting thought to chew on as you finish your row, a reminder that traditions are always evolving, even as they hold on to their core truths. The room is growing quite dark now, the last of the sun having vanished behind the mountains. You decide to stop for the day, even though you are only a few inches away from finishing the entire border. It is important not to rush this final stage. You need the clear, honest light of the morning to ensure that your final knots are as beautiful as your first. You carefully lay the cloak down on its mat, the Tāniko border facing up. Even in the dim light, the patterns are clear and powerful. The zigzags of the sea, the steps of the mountain, and the teeth of the guardian all speak to you in a silent, visual language. You feel a deep sense of accomplishment, a quiet glow in your chest that is more warming than any fire. You stand up and stretch, feeling the satisfying pop of your joints as they release the tension of the day. Your back is a little sore, and your eyes are tired, but your spirit is light. You walk to the door and look up at the sky. The stars are starting to come out, and you realize that they look a lot like the patterns in your weave. Little points of light connected by invisible lines of meaning. You feel a profound sense of connection to the cosmos, a feeling that you are a tiny but essential part of a much larger design. You aren't just a person sitting in a hut in New Zealand. You are a weaver of the universe, a participant in the eternal dance of creation. As you head toward the communal kitchen for your evening meal, you pass several other weavers who are also finishing their work for the day. You exchange a silent nod of respect, an acknowledgement of the shared labor and the shared passion that binds you together. There is a comfort in this community, a sense of belonging that is hard to find in the fragmented world of the future. You know that everyone here understands the weight of the muka and the rhythm of the shell. You are all part of the same story, weaving different chapters of the same great book. After dinner, you return to your sleeping area, the scent of the wood smoke and the sea still clinging to your hair. You lie down on your mat and close your eyes, but the patterns of the Tāniko are still dancing behind your eyelids. You see the black zigzags and the red triangles moving in a slow, hypnotic loop. They aren't just shapes anymore. They are movements, rhythms, vibrations. You feel yourself sinking into the mattress, your body becoming heavy and relaxed. The patterns begin to blend with the sounds of the night, the chirping of the crickets, the rustling of the leaves, the distant roar of the ocean. It is all one big, beautiful weave. You think about the fringe tidbit, about the magnetic mapping one more time before you drift off. Whether it's true or not, you certainly feel more aligned tonight than you have in a long time. The act of creating something beautiful has a way of smoothing out the rough edges of the soul. You fall asleep with the image of the Potama staircase in your mind, imagining yourself climbing those steps toward a world of infinite knowledge and peace. The journey of the cloak is almost over, but the journey of the weaver is just beginning. You are at rest, the village is at rest, and the stars are weaving their own silent Tāniko across the black velvet of the sky. The air in the room is cool and still, a perfect environment for a deep and restorative sleep. You breathe in the scent of the dried flax and the dying fire, a combination that smells like home. You are a keeper of stories, a guardian of geometry, and a master of the thread. As you sink into the world of dreams, you carry the colors of the earth and the patterns of the sea with you, a vibrant shield against the darkness. Tomorrow, you will tie the final knot, but for tonight, you are simply a part of the pattern, a single, perfect stitch in the fabric of time. The final morning arrives with a whisper of wind through the thatch of your roof, carrying the scent of salt and the cool breath of the mountains. You wake before the village is fully stirring, your body moving with a slow, heavy grace as you make your way to the weaving space for the very last time. The two turuturu poles are still there, standing firm in the earth, holding the weight of your labor. The cloak is almost finished. The long rows of muka, the thousands of shimmering feathers, and the intricate geometric border are all in place. Only the final row remains, the closing of the story, the binding of the mana. You sit down on your familiar mat feeling the cool air on your skin. Your fingers, now calloused and stained by the tannins of the bark and the mud of the swamp, reach for the final threads. This is the aho mutu, the finishing row that locks everything together, ensuring that the energy you have woven into this garment stays within it forever. You might find yourself thinking that this is a bit like finishing a marathon, except instead of a shiny foil blanket and a banana at the end, you get a masterpiece of cultural heritage and a very significant case of weaver's thumb. If you have ever reached the final chapter of a very long book and found yourself slowing down because you didn't want the story to end, you know the feeling that is washing over you now. You have lived with this cloak for months. You have seen it grow from a pile of green leaves into a shimmering, feathered mantle. It has been your constant companion, your meditation, and your challenge. As you prepare to make the final twist, you feel a strange mix of relief and a quiet, lingering sadness. The cloak is about to leave your hands and begin its own life in the world. You pick up the last of the white muka threads. They feel exceptionally soft today, as if they too are aware that their journey of being handled and twisted is coming to an end. You begin the final row with the same precision you used for the first. Twist, lock, pull. Twist, lock, pull. The rhythm is slower today, more deliberate. You are savoring every movement. You think about the crocodile dung sunscreen we mentioned in our previous stories and the minimalist tents of your early setup, and you realize how far you have come. This cloak is a far cry from a survival garment. It is a work of high art, a vessel for the spirit, a mainstream historical fact that adds weight to this moment is that many of these prestigious cloaks were given their own names and were treated as living ancestors. When a chief wore a cloak, they weren't just wearing fabric, they were being embraced by the history and the power of their lineage. As you work your way across the width of the border, you notice how the light catches the Tāniko patterns one last time, the zigzags of the sea, and the steps of the stairway to heaven look bold and certain. You feel a deep sense of connection to the weavers who came before you. Historians still argue whether the specific lock, stitch, finishing technique you are using today became standardized across all tribes at the same time, or if each region developed its own unique way to seal a garment's manner. Some believe that the final knot was accompanied by specific chants that infused the fabric with protection, while others suggest the process was a silent, internal prayer. For you, it is a bit of both. A quiet conversation between your spirit and the fiber. There is a quirky, fringed tidbit that suggests some ancient cloaks were believed to grow heavier over time as they accumulated the mana of the people who wore them. Some families claimed their heirloom cloaks became so heavy with history that they could only be worn for short periods during the most sacred ceremonies. Looking at the thick, feathered surface of your work, you can almost believe it. The garment has a physical and spiritual weight that is undeniable. It feels like a living thing, resting patiently on the frame. You reach the final inch of the row. Your hands are steady, your focus absolute. You make the final twist, tucking the end of the muka thread deep into the weave so that it can never be found. The story is closed. The weave is complete. Now comes the moment of transformation. You carefully reach down and begin to loosen the turuturu poles from the earth. You lift the first pole, feeling the resistance of the ground give way with a soft, sliding sensation. Then you lift the second. For the first time, the cloak is free from its frame. It slumps into your arms, a heavy, warm, and incredibly soft mass of feathers and fiber. You stand up slowly, letting the garment drape over your shoulders. The weight is surprising. It is a comforting, protective pressure that seems to anchor you to the ground. You walk to the center of the room, where a large beam of sunlight is pouring in, and you let the cloak unfurl. The sight is breathtaking. The kariru feathers shimmer in the light, shifting from green to purple to white like the surface of a forest pool. The red kaka feathers at the collar glow like embers in a dying fire. The Tāniko border at the bottom provides a sharp, disciplined contrast to the soft, wild texture of the feathers. You run your hand over the surface, feeling the resilience of the muka and the silkiness of the bird skins. You realize that you have created something that will likely outlive you. This cloak will be worn by leaders. It will be present at births and deaths, and it will carry your touch into the distant future. You feel a profound sense of peace, a realization that your time and effort have been transformed into something eternal. You might joke to yourself that after all this work, you deserve a nap that lasts approximately 3 years. The physical exhaustion is real, but it is overshadowed by a glowing sense of accomplishment. You think about the crock, dung, again and laugh softly. Humans are truly remarkable in their ability to take the raw, often messy elements of the earth and turn them into something of such refined beauty. You take the cloak off and lay it carefully on a clean, woven mat. You spend a few moments grooming the feathers, making sure they all lay flat and smooth. You are like a parent sending a child off to their first day of school, wanting everything to be perfect. The village is now fully awake, and you can hear the sounds of life outside, the calling of voices, the barking of dogs, the smell of food cooking on the fires. You know that soon you will present this cloak to the person it was made for, and there will be a ceremony to celebrate its completion. But for this one moment, the cloak belongs only to you. It is the secret result of your solitary labor, your patience, and your skill. You sit beside it, watching the way the light moves across the feathers as the sun climbs higher in the sky. You feel a deep, soulful connection to the land of Aotearoa, to the flax in the swamps, the birds in the trees, and the mud in the bogs. They are all here, woven into this single, beautiful object. As you sit in the quiet of your workspace, you feel the tension of the last few months finally beginning to drain away. Your shoulders drop, your breathing becomes long and slow, and a pleasant heaviness settles into your limbs. The journey of the Maori Cloak is over, and your journey as its creator has reached its peak. You look at your hands one last time, appreciating the stains and the calluses. They are the tools that made this happen. You are a weaver, a keeper of the flame, and a guardian of history. The world outside is busy and loud, but here, in this small space, there is only the silence of the finished work and the soft, lingering echo of the rhythm of the weave. The air in the room is warm and still, filled with the golden light of a perfect afternoon. You feel your eyes growing heavy as the satisfaction of a job well done washes over you like a gentle tide. You have done enough. The muka is strong, the feathers are bright, and the patterns are true. You lean back against the wall, the scent of the dried flax and the forest still clinging to your clothes. The world is at peace, the village is at rest, and the cloak lies before you, a shimmering testament to the power of the human spirit and the beauty of the natural world. You close your eyes, a small, tired smile on your face, and let yourself drift into a state of deep, well-earned relaxation. The images of the last few months flicker behind your eyelids. The green flax leaves, the white muka waterfalls, the black mud of the swamp, and the vibrant red of the parrot feathers. They all blend together into a single, beautiful tapestry of memory. You are part of the weave now, a thread in the long history of your people. You feel a sense of belonging that goes deeper than words, a connection to the earth and the ancestors that is as strong as the muka itself. The rhythm of the weave has become the rhythm of your heart, a steady, peaceful beat that carries you forward into the quiet of the evening. As you sit there, half asleep in the golden light, you realize that the cloak is not just an object you made. It is a part of who you are. The patience you learned, the focus you developed, and the beauty you discovered are all gifts that you will carry with you forever. The journey of the Watu has changed you, smoothing out the rough edges of your soul, just as you smoothed the fibers of the flax. You are at peace with the world, and the world is at peace with you. The final knot has been tied, and the legacy of mana is secure. The light in the room is beginning to soften now, turning from a bright gold to a gentle, dusty amber as the sun starts its slow descent. The shadows are long and cool, stretching across the floor to touch the edges of the finished cloak. You feel the world slowing down around you, the sounds of the village fading into a distant, rhythmic hum. Your breathing is steady and deep, a slow rise and fall that matches the quiet pulse of the forest outside. The air is cool and fragrant, carrying the scent of the evening flowers and the damp earth. You are wrapped in a cocoon of stillness, a pocket of peace where time seems to have no meaning. Your thoughts are like clouds, drifting lazily across the sky of your mind. They are soft and light, carrying no weight, no urgency. You think of the feathers, how they once soared high above the trees, and now rest in a shimmering layer of warmth. You think of the flax, how it stood tall in the sun, and now provides the strength that holds everything together. Everything has found its place. Everything is exactly where it belongs. You feel a sense of profound safety, a feeling of being held by the earth and the history that you have helped to preserve. There is nothing left to do, no more knots to tie, no more rows to count. There is only this moment of perfect, quiet rest. The silence of the room is like a soft blanket, tucking you in and shielding you from the noise of the outside world. You can feel the weight of your eyelids, a pleasant, heavy pressure that invites you to let go. The patterns of the Tāniko are still there, etched into your memory, but they are no longer sharp and demanding. They are soft and blurry, like a distant mountain range seen through a summer haze. You are sinking deeper into the mat, your body becoming one with the earth, one with the rhythm of the land. The journey is complete, and the destination is this beautiful, lingering peace. The stars will soon be out, weaving their own patterns across the night sky, but for now, there is only the twilight and the fading warmth of the sun. You are a weaver at rest, a creator who has found their center. The mana of the cloak is a warm glow in the room, a silent blessing that watches over you as you drift. You are safe, you are respected, and you are deeply, wonderfully tired. Let the world go on without you for a while. Let the stories of the future wait for the morning light. Tonight, there is only the stillness, the softness, and the dreamless sleep that follows a labor of love. You are drifting now, floating on a sea of white muka and green feathers. The colors are swirling around you in a slow, hypnotic dance, a kaleidoscope of beauty that is both familiar and new. You feel light, as if the spirit of the birds has entered your own soul, lifting you up and carrying you away from the cares of the world. The air is cool on your face, a gentle caress that whispers of the mountain snow and the deep, dark valleys. You are at peace, a single thread in the great, eternal weave of the universe. Rest now, and let the beauty you have created be your lullaby. The day is done, the work is finished, and the night is yours to enjoy in the deepest, most restful quiet.